What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel and welcome to the biggest matchup in the college football season, at least thus far, but it could prove to be the biggest matchup we see all season long. It's coming to us from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and a rare regular season meeting between these two SEC powerhouses. It is the Georgia Bulldogs and the Alabama Crimson Tide, the first top 5 matchup that we are going to be getting this season. And friends, this is a massive one in SEC play. Boy, can I not wait to break down this contest. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about the Bulldogs and Tide here in just a little bit. But before we do that, you guys know I got to say thank you for all the love and support, and I'll try to go through this spiel pretty quickly here. But if you want to help support me on YouTube and you're as big of a college football nerd as I am, make sure you hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. I talk a lot of college football, do a lot of predictions. Later as the season goes along, I'm going to start doing a lot of other videos as well as my schedule sort of starts to wind down. So please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. We're so close to 2,500 subscribers. Thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this video, and please help support the channel in any way you can by liking, commenting, sharing, whatever else you may be willing and or able to do. But if you want to help support me outside of YouTube, go give me a follow on Twitter, guys, at TailgateNate29, or Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Again, it's at TailgateNate29. I post literally about everything else I do as a sports media student on campus, and games I call, articles I write, whatever have you. So I'd really appreciate a follow over there if you so could, please. So with all of that out of the way, guys, I'm so excited to be talking about this one from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And well, how did we do preview predictions here on my channel? Well, we're going to go through keys to the game when each team possesses the football. So first, we're going to take a look at Georgia's offense versus this Alabama defense, and then we'll take a look at the Tide offense versus the Dog defense. At the end of the video, after I tell you my keys, I'll sort of give you a final prediction here, what I think is going to happen, how I think this game is going to play out, my final thoughts, and of course give you a score prediction for who I think is going to walk out with the W in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I'm just as excited as you guys are for this matchup, if not even more so. Let's dive on in and talk about the Dogs, talk about the Tide from Tuscaloosa. Again, Alabama has dominated the series for the most part. Again, Georgia won the biggest matchup thus far in the national championship game. But other than that, Alabama's been on top of the Dogs more often than not. Most recent matchup, of course, came in the SEC championship game last season that kept Georgia out of the college football playoff. But revenge on the minds of both of these teams. Georgia, of course, wants to avenge that loss there. But Bama still hasn't forgotten about that national championship game. Let's start out with this Georgia offense. And I mean, guys, for the most part, and I say for the most part, I'll talk about why in just a little bit, Carson Beck, the quarterback here for Georgia, has played sensationally well this season. 680 yards, 7 touchdowns, no picks, and around 68% completion percentage. And he's got a ton of weapons there with him. In the backfield alone, Trevor Etienne, Nate Frazier, and Branson Robinson, all those guys have been running well, as well as Carson Beck. His ability to get outside of the pocket has flashed a time or two. Actually 11 times this season for 55 yards. No touchdowns yet. Robinson has 2. And Nate Frazier, a freshman, by the way, has 1. And with Ra Thomas, again, the whole situation that happened with him before this season, you definitely lost one of your bigger threats downfield. More on that later. But you still got a lot of really good wide receiving weapons, guys. Lovett and Smith and Bell and Humphreys and Young and tight ends like Lucky and Delp, and even some of these backfields like Robinson and Etienne. While they haven't done much as a receiver out of the backfield yet, they definitely have still shown that they are more than capable of doing so. Is this Georgia offense as good as we've seen in previous years? Maybe, maybe not. You could definitely make that case, but I'm here to tell you guys, don't count out Carson Beck. Do not count out this Georgia offense, because they are still a really good bunch with a lot of really good talent, and the offensive line, again, has only allowed 2 sacks this season. This is an offense as a whole that hasn't turned the football over, but there are some caveats with that. One, Carson Beck did not have his best game against Kentucky a couple of weeks ago. Now, if you're looking at that and you're saying, well, Carson Beck isn't the same player as he was last season, again, guys, we've seen Georgia do this before. They go on the road, first SEC road game, they struggle, everyone doubts them, and then they come back stronger than ever, right? I have a good feeling that Georgia's going to follow a pretty similar storyline than what has happened here in previous seasons. But the thing that you need to know about this Georgia team is, yes, Carson Beck has got to start playing a little bit better, and the offensive line is going to be a massive key here. Not necessarily that they have to play better, because they've done a really good job, again, for the most part, so far this season, but Tate Ratledge is not going to be playing in this game. One of, if not the best offensive lineman, and potentially the first offensive lineman that could be off the board in April in the NFL draft, had a major injury last week and will probably see significant time out and sitting on the sidelines, and especially against this Bama pass rush, guys, that already has 7 sacks this season against this Bama secondary for Carson Beck, led by Keon Sabb, who has just been ridiculous so far this season. Sabb has 3 pass defended and 2 picks by himself. This team as a whole, in fact, Keon Sabb has the only 2 interceptions that this Bama team has forced so far. 21 pass defended through 3 games. I mean, this secondary is just wild. It's insane. You also have a guy back there by the name of Devontae Smith. That sound familiar, Bama fans? No, not a wide receiver, a defensive back. And this has just been a unit that's been lights out so far this season. Carson Beck challenging this Alabama secondary, being able to figure it out, and especially get that downfield pass game working. It just, again, feels like Georgia does not really have the downfield weapons or the downfield threats that they've had in previous seasons. That's got to be something that Carson Beck has got to fix. And again, without Tate Ratledge, how does this offensive line hold up? Because you know that Bama is going to attack the position where Tate Ratledge fills. And I can't remember that off the top of my head here, but Bama's definitely going to be attacking this Georgia offensive front. So the line of scrimmage battle, the battle in the trenches, is going to be absolutely massive. But again, Carson Beck, push that football downfield, get that deep pass game working, challenge this Bama secondary. You have some really speedy guys and some talented wide receivers. Trust them. Let them go up and win those matchups. But again, for Bama, I just said it, get that pass rush engaged. Challenge this Georgia offensive line. What is it going to look like without Tate Ratledge? We don't know because we haven't seen it yet. We saw a little bit of it in the game against Kentucky. And for the most part, I mean, guys, it held up pretty well. Didn't allow a sack, only 3 tackles for loss. This is a different animal in the Bama pass rush. It has to get engaged, and it also has to keep Carson Beck contained. Do not let Carson Beck extend plays because, again, we know this Georgia offense, guys, they may not have the downfield presence, at least as of right now, that they have had in previous seasons. You let these Georgia wide receivers work, you let Carson Beck extend plays, that only spells doom for this Bama defense. But again, I've hammered it home here throughout this slide. Big plays are going to be absolutely massive. Georgia has got to be able to get that big play going, and Bama has got to be able to limit those big plays if Georgia is going to provide them at all here in this game. But you could say the same thing about the opposite side of the football here, because this Alabama offense, oh my goodness, it is just lights out. It is explosive play after explosive play after explosive play, and Jalen Milroe is going to be one of the leading candidates to win the Heisman Trophy this year. 590 yards, 8 touchdowns, no picks on 67% completion percentage so far. And on the ground, guys, 36 carries, 156 yards. Yes, sack yardage is included in that. He's been sacked 5 times. Overall, the offensive line has allowed 6 sacks. And Jalen Milroe, 6 rushing touchdowns. 6 of them. 6 rushing touchdowns. So that's accounted for quick math there. 14 total touchdowns for this Alabama offense. Yeah, guys, if you're not putting 2 and 2 together right now, Jalen Milroe is a pretty darn good player that has a lot of very, very talented weapons. Jam Miller and Justice Haynes there in that backfield. And I mean, you want to talk about one of the best freshmen in college football. Everyone is looking at Jeremiah Smith. Everyone is looking at Dylan Raiola, and everyone is looking at Ryan Williams, leading Bama in receiving yards up to this point. 10 catches, 285 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He's going to be a challenge for any defense to shut down, but you also got guys like Jeremy Bernard and Kobe Prentice and Cuevas as the tight end, and so many other weapons that can do damage here. Again, Ryan Williams is that guy who is that big play threat, can get the ball downfield, and just is absolutely an electric weapon for Bama on the outside. The offensive line, though, has still been a little bit of a concern for Bama, and they need to do a little bit of a better job at holding on to the football, and I mean that that literally and figuratively, because again, this is a Bama team that hasn't thrown an interception yet. All 4 of those turnovers have been fumbles. That is something that absolutely cannot happen because Georgia will take advantage of it. Even though their defense is only averaging 1 turnover forced per game so far, this is a defensive front that we know can get pressure. This is a secondary that we know can force picks, and it's a Georgia defense, guys, again, that still has been absolutely outstanding this season. And it just, I mean, you go up and down this defense, guys. It's just got a ton of really, really phenomenal weapons. You take a look at the stats here. Again, 8 sacks has been absolutely massive so far this season. I think they have something like 15 tackle for losses. I could be wrong on that stat. I don't have it in front of me, just kind of going off the top of my head here. They could have a lot more than what I am thinking right now. Only 6 pass defended and 1 pick, though. Again, but they haven't really had to defend anything down the field, and that number speaks for itself, guys. 91 pass yards per game. That's it. I mean, these defensive backs do a phenomenal job in pass coverage. So the big key here first, again, you go back to what I was talking about with big plays, right? Well, the Tide's explosiveness, I think, is going to write the storyline here, because if this Georgia defense cannot keep just the explosiveness that is Ryan Williams, the explosiveness that is Jalen Milroe contained, and you see that in my second key there, so more on that in just a minute, but especially down the field. If Georgia cannot limit Bama's explosive tendencies and their explosive plays on offense, it could be quite a long day for this Georgia defense, because Bama, I mean, they needed pretty much no time 2 weeks ago, because they had a bye week last week, 2 weeks ago against the Wisconsin Badgers. I mean, Wisconsin felt like, you know, they were going to try to score. Bama did not have a ton of time. And I think off the top of my head, there was like 30-some seconds. Bama only needed 17 to go down and score, 17 to 20, somewhere in that range. But it was like 2 or 3 plays, explosive plays down the field. Ryan Williams, a huge factor in that. Jalen Milroe, a huge factor in that. And Bama was able to beat Wisconsin on the road very, very convincingly because of the explosiveness. Wisconsin was not able to slow it down. Georgia has to be able to here if they want to walk out of Tuscaloosa with a win. But again, you just heard me say it a little bit ago, and you've kind of heard me hammer it home here, but I'll be a little bit more specific now. The Dogs' edge and their linebacker room, I think, as well, must contain Milroe in every single facet here. Do not let Jalen Milroe get outside of the pocket. Play as many quarterback spies as you want, because you cannot let him get free. I don't even think you can allow him to extend plays. That defensive front has to utilize the quarterback contain scheme, right? Force the pocket to be small. Do not let Milroe get anywhere. And this Georgia pass rush, guys, has really got to get home, and it's got to get home fast, because you want to talk about the line of scrimmage on the other side of the ball, right, with Bama's defensive front challenging this Georgia offensive line that's going to be without its best offensive lineman. This is an offensive line for Bama, guys, that we still have seen their struggles this season. Now, it has been a lot better, and I mean a lot better, a ton better in every single facet by at least a factor of 3. It still has its little quirks, it has its moments, and we know the talent that Georgia has on the defensive front. It needs to get home, it needs to get pressure, and it has to set that tone early and often. But Bama, you got to avoid that turnover bug, man. If you give this Georgia offense more opportunities, eventually it's going to beat you. So again, as I said at the beginning here, Bama's got to do a better job of holding on to the ball, literally. I mean, literally holding on to that ball. They cannot have any big fumbles here. That's going to be a huge factor in this game. But guys, all lines and odds, by the way, as of recording this video, the 3-0 Dogs, the 3-0 Tide, someone has to come away with Tuscaloosa, or someone has to come away from Tuscaloosa with a win. And guys, I think it's going to end up being Bama. This one is going to be, again, Saturday prime time on ABC. I do think it's going to be Bama that walks away with the win here in this game. For those of you into the season, I said this in the beginning. I've said it all up preseason long. If you are doubting Bama just because they don't have Nick Saban, because the talent level, quote unquote, isn't what it used to be, you are fooling only yourselves. You're making a fool, right? This Bama team is so It's so good. The defense has been electric this season. The big explosive play ability with Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams and that Kalen DeBoer offensive system, guys, it has been absolutely extraordinary to watch. Georgia is absolutely going to make this thing a fight, guys. This is going to be a 4-quarter battle. It's going to go back and forth. I think both of these teams are going to have multiple leads throughout this game, but I think the explosiveness of Bama, especially that secondary being able to limit Carson Beck and him not having the explosive weapons that he's had in the past, is a huge reason why I think Bama is going to win this game. If Georgia's going to do it, they're going to do it with their pass rush. They're going to do it by being more physical. They're going to do it by winning the battle on the line of scrimmage with Georgia, which Georgia may very well be able to do here in this game. But I don't think they're going to be able to contain Jalen Milroe as often as they need to. And this Bama defense, I think, will make a crucial stop that will help this team inevitably win this game. Guys, I cannot wait for this matchup. This is a real toss-up game for me, but I think there's a little bit too much in Bama's favor here, in my opinion, and that is why I'm going with the Tide to get the win in Tuscaloosa. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys tomorrow with more predictions. Goodbye.